Some viewers may find this content disturbing. Viewer discretion is advised. Who dares awaken me from my slumber? Teddy from Speak in Code Podcast. This must mean once again it is time for Midnight Lycanthropy here on StarFox Radio. Last time we had Chente, now Teddy, and hopefully Drew next. Without further ado, allow me to feed. Absolutely delicious. I can feel my powers oozing through my veins. Once again, I am fully revamped, and it is time for Teddy and myself to take a walk into the darkness known as the Dogman phenomenon. My creatures of the night, yes, it is once again midnight lycanthropy time here on Star Fox Radio. We, as always, have an amazing host tonight who I've collaborated with before, and he was actually one of the first podcasts I did appear on when I started doing my research. Teddy, how are you doing tonight, man? Long time no talk, bro.
It has been a very long time. I'm doing good. How about yourself?
Yeah, it's just been pretty busy, which I assume the busyness is down your way as well. So it is good to sit down and link up again and catch up, man.
Oh yeah, definitely.
I do know you have an interest in the paranormal and Dogman. Would you like to tell my audience for a second what you've been up to or what you do on the side here?
Well, I'm a part of another podcast called Speak in Code, where we talk about like the paranormal conspiracies, religion conspiracies. Like we delve into that. Even like if aliens are real or not. I'm still new to all of it, so a lot of times, if you listen to our podcast, it seems like I'm skeptical because I am because some information is new to me. And so as they feed me more information, I decide whether I believe it or not. It's kind of a unique way to do it. You have like two believers and one skeptic, and they're all giving their opinions on the conspiracies and the greater out there of the universe.
Teddy, kudos, my dude. First off, bro, just never change the healthy skepticism because, hey, I am a healthy skeptic myself. As previously stated all the time, I have had no sort of paranormal activity. I'm a journalist, historian. I approach everything as a healthy skeptic, and I encourage anyone out there to ask skeptical questions that are healthy. There's ways to go amongst it. Obviously, there's ways to go amongst anything in life. So, I mean, you can, or I can, or anybody else could, quote unquote, be trolling if they want to by skeptical questions, or also if they're presenting them as legitimate questions to gain knowledge. That's okay, man. There's no reason for anyone to go all in and just believe everything because that's not the way things work. So I think that's excellent, man. And I encourage you not to change anything about that, dude.
Well, thank you, thank you. I like keeping an open mind because sometimes you'll find out new information, and if your mind's closed, you won't allow yourself to accept it.
Which is very well stated again too, and I also encourage that. I try to always stay as open-minded as possible. I always want to learn. I always want to speak to people that are smarter than myself, that know more than me, everything, just because that's the way to approach and research. And that is a great statement, but it is also important, as we just said, not to blindly follow into anything, because I mean, I encourage anyone to look up historical aspects of people that blindly followed others into anything, and it usually never ends well, meaning there aren't good answers or really things being figured out either. I mean, we have to ask questions to get answers, so it's good stuff, man. What do
Oh yeah.
you know about the dog, man? I guess, do you, being down in Ohio, you're pretty much in the area I like to call Werewolf Square. I mean, you got Wisconsin, you got Michigan, you got Ohio, you got some Pennsylvania, West Virginia, the LBL, and the Tennessee area. That's all stacked up like right in there.
See, I don't know anything about the Dogman. I know a bit about like some werewolf mythology, but like the Dogman, he is fresh to me. So like I may ask you some questions that I asked when I got to hop on our podcast, but I'm not sure like how related werewolves and dogmen are, or if they're two separate species. So I'm gonna say like I know nothing of the Dogman.
I appreciate the honesty and a very classy answer. Well, you can ask me whatever you'd like, yet before, if you wanted to potentially maybe just dive into a little bit of the mythology you've heard about, I think that'd be pretty cool. And then, yeah, from there, man, just roll with it. Whatever questions I can try to give you quality answers to.
Okay. Also, I like to apologize for my voice going in and out. Getting over a sinus infection and talking with a raw throat doing podcasts, you lose your voice. So I apologize in advance for
How dare you, Teddy? What the
that.
heck, man? Holy Christmas trees. We need to cancel this right now. Dude, it's all good, bro. No worries.
Well, let's see. Some of the werewolf mythology I know. I know in Greek mythology there was a king who tried to be like spiteful and trick, I believe it was Zeus or Poseidon, into eating human flesh. And as punishment, they turned him and his subjects into wolves. That's one mystery from werewolves. Another one is Indian mythology. It's kind of tied in with the skinwalkers, that there were shamans that could put on the cloak of wolves, and that allowed them to transfer into a man beast. And there was one other one, but I'm drawing a blank on it now. But those are the two that like are always at the forefront of my mind.
It's good stuff, man. I mean, for someone that claiming you said you don't know too much about the topic, that's excellent. And the one you're referring to is King Lycan. And yeah, he
Yes.
supposedly fed Zeus something that he was not very impressed with. And yeah, there was a punishment obviously ensued after that. And then, and yeah, the Native American lores and the indigenous cultures, the skinwalker, which would be the pelt that you were referring to, having to take that from an animal to become the animal. And that's some very interesting stuff. I do think there is it's still referred to as the dogman, but skinwalkers and such is a different aspect, meaning the skinwalker never becomes some sort of raging animal overtake. So, say if it took the pelt of a grizzly bear, it's not now some monster grizzly bear. It's a grizzly bear that has the capabilities of still understanding and acting like a human and having the potential human side of it still. But that's really where the skinwalker aspects, that's way out of my realm. Ryan Tremblay, the
Okay.
Wendigo guy, he knows a ton about that, and he's actually really helped inform me about that, because I do agree, though, there is a big difference between the dogman and quote unquote the curse of the lycanthrope and then skinwalkers. There is a difference through all those for sure.
Okay. See, I thought there might be, but not being knowledgeable about Dogman, I had to ask.
No, a valid question, and as I can actually kind of top on, so the Rougarou and aspects like that, the werewolf, it's kind of embedded in French culture. So when they came over here, in theory, whoever had this curse came over with it. So when that diving into the werewolf and lycanthropy and such, it's definitely a topic that is considered more of a curse. Whereas the skinwalker, it could be a curse once you've done it to yourself. But the thing is, you're not being cursed by someone. You're doing something that you're cursing yourself purposely, more or less, meaning you are disposing of someone close to you or doing something to get the capability now of the darker magic aspects, okay? Whereas the
Okay.
lycanthropy, meaning you and I might not have had a choice in the matter if it is true, whereas something just occurred to us. And there is an infamous case of the werewolf girl from the Georgia area that went over to school. This is a long time ago in the 1800s. She went over to the school in Europe, and when she came back, she supposedly acted more animalistic, had hair in places she really shouldn't have, and also would just disappear at night. And villagers were losing pets and livestock. And one night they shot at something, and supposedly Isabella Emily Clark, I believe her name was, when she showed back up at her house, her mom needed to treat her for wounds for being shot, which was verified. Super interesting. But again, this would be a curse. Whereas I said with the skinwalkers, they're purposely trying to do that to gain those type of powers. And now when you have what I believe are some actual physical entities and beings and creatures like cave hyenas, short-faced bears, dire wolves, giant baboons, I believe those are all falling into categories of dogmen and dogwomen sightings as well. And so now that again breaks it down even more. So you have the aspect of the curse type portion over here, which is different. And then you have the Wendigo type aspect. And then now you have like the physical aspects, but people have reported them, like I said, looking like baboons, bears, hyenas, jackals, etc., German Shepherd like looking ones. But I mean, some people report them being bipedal at times, but a lot of people report them being quadrupedal, which means running upwards on twos and fours like baboons do. And if people don't really aren't informed as to how animals look or act, they don't really have a correct analysis to figure out what they're seeing. And I've used this example before. Like we know what kangaroos are, but say you and I or the world had never really put a name to a kangaroo, and we were in Australia, and this animal pops up from the bushes. Okay, we see it from its waist down. Well, look at its chest. It looks like a bodybuilder, correct? It's got human-like arms. It's got a
Yeah.
snout that looks like canine, and it's got pointy ears, and it looks like, does that not look like a dog man or a human canine man? But yeah, we know it's a kangaroo. A lot of times people get pushed away from the topic by the term dogman. That's just the name that was given to it, meaning the person that saw it thought it or sees it thinks it looks canine, but all the animals I stated are not canine based. Okay, so it's something that I understand that's the term that goes with it, but when I'm approaching the scientific community, like right now we have an environmentalist, a geologist, and a master tracker on our team, but I do want to get
Hmm.
a couple biologists, maybe a zoologist, just people with credentials. But when I approach these people, I don't sit there and just start talking about the curse of the werewolf or I try not to use the term dog man. Ask them their thoughts on the fact that we think these animals that fall into the categories of what people are seeing aren't extinct because 10,000, 11,000 years ago is not long at all. We do have footprints that look like hyena-ish footprints, baboonish across the United States. People that can't really distinguish that, they do look bearish. People are missing by the cave systems. These animals did exist, and then I hope that they'll at least sit down and talk to me, and I can explain, hey, look, these are people that are missing. Here are some of the reports of what people have been seeing. Here are strange footprints. Instead of just sitting down and trying to say, hey, I hunt werewolves. Sure, that sounds cool. And you might get some clicks online with something along the lines of that. But any sort of scientific minded individual probably is not going to take that serious if you reach out to them and say, hey, I hunt werewolves. Can we talk?
Yeah. Yeah, if they're not open minded, they just kind of laugh at you or hang up on you.
Yes, and that's okay, like I said, because that's why I have a science team, but that's also why I just try to, as much as possible, play by the rules of science, because if minds want to sit down and figure this out, and we do have some great theories and evidence, like I said, supporting things, we just need to make sure we have a quality presentation. And I'm not ever going to say that there's nothing paranormal or extraterrestrial based about the Dogman, because there's a lot of encounters that really do gear in maybe that line, but there's also a ton that gear in what we're just talking about a second ago. So I think that it needs to be approached in many different ways with people that specialize in aspects, but with the way I'm trying to do it with science is if I want science on board, I can't talk about paranormal stuff because that's not what they take as credible or meritable. Yeah, it is important for people out there that do believe it is incurring in paranormal aspects to note that and dive into that. But again, as I stated, I can't present that to a professor at a university that specializes in something, you know?
Yeah, because they want to speak in cold hard facts, not speculation.
Yes, which is okay, man. And I understand that and I respect that. And yes, like I hope and I actually have, our environmentalist is very open minded. So is our geologist. They already had an interest in the topic when they joined on with us. So it wasn't really hard to sit there and get their attention because were already intrigued by it. Whereas I do believe people out there that are qualified would take interest into this topic if I can just show them some of the evidence. And our environmentalist works with some great biologists who are super busy, but she showed them a few of the tracks that I've sent her and some of the strange photos, and they're pretty baffled by it, and they're interested in potentially talking with us, which is good because, as you said, they want cold hard facts, which I do too. I mean, it's no different. I'm not ever going to say someone's encounter is not real until people are able to sit down and figure it out. And I don't know. Okay, I wasn't there, so until I take people that I value their opinions that help figure out, hey, this didn't happen, it needs to be asked and approached because it's usually nothing to be able to fully back up the encounter. Okay. Sometimes there's some sketchy looking images. Okay. Well, I feel like if there are these gnarly encounters that do occur sometimes, you just got to have evidence to back it up to an extent. Meaning, if I was to say that you and I got attacked by a dogman or a werewolf right in our living room, and it threw Teddy through the wall, and then it bit my shoulder and ripped my dog apart, busted down the front door as it ran out. Okay, that all sounds pretty gnarly. Yet, where would be the proof of that? There should be proof of the broken wall, correct? There should be proof of you being like bruised up. There should be proof of a bite mark on my shoulder. There should be a picture of the dog ripped apart, etc. And I just feel like a lot of times people don't have those type of things to back up their encounter. I'm not saying that those type encounters and that stuff doesn't occur, and the people that are telling me or you or anyone else that encounter that it didn't happen, I would just say that there should be some sort of substantial, I guess, evidence to support the claim that's being presented, correct?
Correct. To counter that, like I would say, like most of these sightings or instances happen with people like in the woods, outside in nature, and evidence could be erased so quick. A rainstorm, a windstorm, and if I'm outside enjoying nature, my first thought is, "Oh, let me grab my camera." I'm just enjoying myself in the moment. So if I were to spot or be attacked by the dog man outside of my bruises, I wouldn't have evidence because, like I said, last thing I do would be to grab my camera and be to run for my life or defend myself.
Teddy, I love how you just said that because I'm just, trying to play devil's advocate in regards of just asking questions that I know like the public ask or just some of the mind frames, people have and just examples of why and why not. Because what you just stated as well, though, I preach that all the time, that when people are out in nature and such, or if something dangerous is happening, the last thing anyone is going to do is pick up their phone. And the ones that do probably don't exist anymore, whether it's a polar bear or anything. I mean, if a polar bear is running towards us and someone decides to record it, I'm running, you're running, and you turn around, well, that person's never, you're never going to see that video because the phone's going to get chomped on, they're going to get chomped on, etc. So
Yes.
I totally 1000% agree with that. And I actually would take some of those type of encounters with the more merit, meaning the ones that are more simplified or the quicker ones type in the forest. But also, again, we as humans like to piece together things in our mind and try to figure out what the heck's going on all the time, no matter what. And the problem is sometimes we psych ourselves up. And we do know that in the past, our ancestors had to deal with predators that did come into our areas to eat us and things. So that's installed into us to have that fear. And now when we watch horror movies all the time and we listen to stories that are creepy and encounters that are creepy or whatever, and now we're out by ourselves, it of course plays a trick on the mind to an extent. I mean, I'll give an example. It's no different when I've been researching all night and I finish up. It's like 3:30 in the morning. It's jet black and nothing's happening. But you walk by the living room window that the curtains are still wide open, and you just, my creative mind is, oh wow, what if a dog man was looking in? There's no dog man looking in. But you see what I'm saying? It's just because it's installed, because I just installed it in myself and I've been researching all night. But it's also just that natural fear of the unknown. So it really makes me wonder sometimes if that doesn't come into play with people thinking that they're seeing things in the shadows of the trees and such, because that has to be a portion of what's occurring. But then you do have people that are extremely trained in what it is that they're viewing and what it is that they're hearing, which is definitely a mystery. But I do know
Yes.
that the human mind, man, we just make things up sometimes, not even on purpose, but just trying to understand what we're seeing.
Oh, 100%. Because, like you said, if your brain has never seen it before, it's going to go to the closest relatable thing that it knows. So, you know, you're seeing Bigfoot, but in your mind, oh, it's just a Kodak bear because that's the only thing that would be out here. Not realizing you were next to like a wonder of the world that people still don't know if it exists or not.
Well stated, my friend, exactly. And that's why it's really interesting, because there's just so much that goes into this, and because there are things that are unexplainable, but then there's things that are explainable that people still think that are unexplainable. And it's just hard to sometimes decipher it, which is why I like to sit down with individuals like yourself and just really figure out, what it is that is credible and what's not. And unfortunately, we would like to believe everybody and believe everything, but as I stated, it's human nature for people to lie. I mean, why do liars exist if it's not part of human capabilities? I mean, why is hoaxing, why does it happen if it's something that humans don't do? I mean, I've heard of people just messing around with family members, putting on Bigfoot suits and all this stuff, man. And I've heard of people getting
Yeah.
hit in cars doing it. You see what I'm saying? Like, so it happens. It's a reality. It's a fact. So it does make it where we have to, as researchers, do a little bit more to verify things. It's no different than kind of like a two-way authenticator for your phone, whereas before it used to just be the password. Okay, well, things have been advanced, so now you have to get a code, meaning, okay, when we interview people and such in the past, maybe before all the crazy hoaxing and the technology, maybe easier to get your facts straight, but now it's not so much, and people can stage things. Even if someone claims that they live out in the middle of the forest, they don't have technology, it's very easy to get Halloween style blood or kind of make that yourself. It's very easy to buy animal organs down at the street and then throw it all around in your yard and make it look like something happened and take pictures of it and have somebody come over and see that. And again, sure, we're seeing these images now. Okay, but there is no other fact. No one else was there except for you. So who knows? How can I prove or disprove that you yourself didn't just go out there and pour all that around and make it look like that? How can I
Yeah.
prove or not prove that? And that's why there needs to be more than just that, because there's so much wiggle room for staging stuff, man.
Yes, and then the advancement in technology screws us over too, because before technology was so grainy that it's like, oh, it's too blurry, we can't tell what it is. And now we have AI and 3D projection and costumes that are so realistic that if you don't know it's a costume, you think it's the real thing. So we went from hope of technology advanced to prove it, then it advanced so much more for people to pull the hoax.
Again, well stated, my friend. And yes, like with the Patty footage and the Freeman footage, some of the ones that really just stand out because at the time frames and with the technology that was used, it's just it wasn't able to replicate that. And same thing with the Freeman camera he used, you can't really edit that type of footage, etc. Whereas now with my iPhone, it's beautiful, but I can do so much stuff, man. I can render photos, I can remaster anything. Any photo out there, man, like you can remix it, you can do anything with AI, okay? It's just the way it
Yeah.
is. And I can take a photo of a dogman or a real wolf, turn it into a dogman looking thing, and then put a filter on where it looks all grainy, and then put somebody from an old photo in a wild, wild west picture, and then merge it all together if I wanted to and make it look like a old photo, okay? And that's what hoaxers are doing. I have a trained eye in this stuff because I'm a videographer and graphics designer, meaning I just understand like the capabilities as to what's occurring. I make my own art, I remix images, I make my own videos. I know how to do all that stuff, okay? Like it literally explains it to you in the apps or the tutorials. It's all there. It's all able to be done. So that, yeah, it doesn't bring any merit to it anymore because I could literally be walking with you and I right now in the forest and we could make a video. Yeah, it doesn't look that great right now. The CGI still isn't there, but it's in the beginning stages of a werewolf running out and getting us. I've seen it numerous times. I've seen people walking with huge T-Rexes in the background. Again, looks pretty cool, but it still needs work. But the point is, it's going to get to a point pretty soon where video and photo evidence isn't going to stand up whatsoever. Meaning, recently somebody sent in a footage to us about a nefarious juvenile dog man running through the forest in Michigan, and it had like some insignia on it, and it was like a still shot where they tried to make it look like it was moving, and man, it was just it looked cool, sounded cool, had a crazy creepy bark, but it's faked, man. It was staged, it was a rigged video through AI and stuff, man.
You said nefarious, and that's the question that's on my mind. Do you think dogmen are a protective or nefarious creature?
Ooh, there's some interesting thoughts to both of those sides where they fall into. I believe any sort of predator, anything that eats meat is of course gonna take advantages of things. I mean, people think that, hey, well, this animal isn't a human hunter. Well, of course, if it has an opportunity to be, it's gonna snag us. I mean, if a pack of wolves is out looking for food and you and I happen to stumble by, there's 25 wolves. Well, why would the wolves not come and take us when they're hungry when they were just trying to run down a pack of caribou? It makes it a lot easier, does it not? Of course, they're not gonna necessarily go into a city to pull you away and get you, right? The wolves. But if you're out there, man, yeah, that's how nature and predators roll. But then there are some, again, encounters or stories, but they really can't be verified or debunked about people supposedly having some sort of relationship with these. But any sort of Native American lores or legends about it are all negative. I mean, if you want to jump back even more, Alexander the Great and Herodotus and all them spoke about them being ferocious warriors. That, yeah, sure, it was good that they were on your side, but you really definitely didn't want to cross them. And I don't think there's any sort of genuine reason for a predator to befriend any sort of human unless you're supplying food for it. But
True.
then what happens when the predator realizes the food source you're supplying them isn't as good as you yourself?
Then they're going to take a sample.
Well, the reason I say that is I've just seen stories of people feeding crocodiles and such, and they think that they're friends, but then it's literally like that. Just one day they bring down the steak and all the chicken, but the crocodile decides, I don't want that. I want you.
Again, those natural instincts. I want the moving prey. I want the thrill of the hunt.
Yes, and so I do think that falls into play with that, and that would be my answer. I don't think they're something that wants to be friends or we should try to befriend. I mean, yeah, there's special occasions where people have befriended bears if they raise them, but at the end of the day, a bear doesn't want to be our friend when we just walk out in the wilderness, okay? Like, I mean,
Yeah.
this is, yeah, you would like to think it goes down like that. And I mean, yeah, respecting nature is super important and needs to be done. But respect is also an understanding, meaning if you respect the animals, don't do stupid things that then get their lives in jeopardy because you decided to walk up and try to pet the bear, or you decided to feed the bear, and then when you left, now the bear wants to come back for more food and attack somebody. Well, you thought you were doing something nice by feeding the bear, but in actuality, you just got the bear.
Yes, because like you said, it's getting used to it. Like, oh yeah, when I walk up to a person, they give me a sandwich, but I don't think they initially realize that not every person has that mindset. Because, like you said, they're animals. Like they
I'm
do have
glad you
learned
said that.
behavior.
Yep.
They do have like learned behavior from interacting with us, but I don't think they comprehend that from person to person our behavior changes. So where I feed it food, you get scared of it. And so now it's chasing you, thinking if I follow him, he's going to get the food. And then frustration, now he just takes a bite of you.
Yes, exactly, man. And really sad example is there was a amazing story about a wild wolf that honestly just seemed to want to know what it was like to basically around people because it would come to this park and just play with everyone and their dogs and stuff, and everyone in the area knew the wolf. It was the only one that came around, and they trusted it, and it played with the dogs, and nothing bad ever happened. But then one day that wolf went to an area a little bit outside of the normal area, and as you stated, it just tried to walk up to these people and they shot it because they like
Oh,
thought, why is it coming up to me like this? But in actuality, it was just coming over to play.
yep. Oh,
So
man, that's sad right there.
yeah, it's sad because that shouldn't have happened, but it's also we kind of did that to it, you know what I mean? By yes, that's like super cool, but it's sad in regards of because like you said, the animal doesn't understand, so it just wants to go play with somebody, but we now then cause these problems with a lot of the attacks and stuff. So no, I just think with any sort of animal, and especially if we're talking about an unknown entity like a dogman or a Sasquatch, people shouldn't be gifting them or really doing any sort of encouragement to come over. I mean, sure, if you feed the raccoon outside in your yard or something, man, you know it's a raccoon, you know how it's going to act unless it has some sort of crazy disease or something. It's not just going to carry you away. It's a raccoon, you know how it acts, okay? But dogman, Sasquatch, or anything like that, no one really knows how they're taking that, okay? So when someone gifts something to either one of them, they're viewing it as how a human would be like, oh, this is cool. But in actuality, that's probably not how those beings are viewing that. They're probably just honestly viewing this as a food source, etc. And again, what happens if you move out and you leave and someone else moves into these properties, these areas, and they now don't have food for these beings or such, and they've become accustomed to it, and maybe they don't even know, and they start firing at them, and now these things are super aggressive towards them. And I've also heard of people gifting and then those beings not being happy with what they have received and banging on the side of their house and cabin, basically as
Oh,
if to,
wow.
yeah, want something else. So
Oh, that's that's wild right there. Like makes you wonder like how do you like toe the line? Like let's say you plan to live in an area for a long time and you notice a dog man or a similar creature and you do try to appease it with gifts, like how do you choose the appropriate thing to give it that won't send it into a rage?
very valid question. And honestly, just my answer would be just respect it and just stay away. And I mean, don't encourage any sort of interactions with it. And I mean, I have a pet squirrel, but also I feed some of the neighborhood squirrels. They come over all the time. I created that. You see what I'm saying? Yes, if you give something to something, an animal or being or whatever, they're going to become accustomed to it. And it's also going to encourage interactions. Like I've seen people feeding deer where obviously they got close enough with these deer that they'd walk it up to their door and stand there and walk into their kitchen for a second as they're feeding them stuff. Okay. So yeah, super cool, dude. And you can do it, but more or less what I'm just trying to say is the moral of the whole entire conversation that we're speaking about at the moment is just you're creating a problem if you don't continue that, a deer or whatever, a squirrel, but we're talking about something that we don't fully understand, and it's just not really good to encourage something like that to come around. I mean, even if you think a tiger is beautiful, okay, you probably shouldn't encourage the tiger to come around your yard and hang out all the time by throwing around stakes, because then the tiger's just going to think that that's its territory and what's going to happen next.
You're going to wonder why you don't get the mail, and that's because the tiger eats all the mail, sees them as a threat.
Yes, very valid point, my friend. So, no, thank you for taking time out of your busy schedule and popping in tonight, man. It was good to catch up and definitely get your thought process on a lot of things because, as stated, there is a ton of activity going on out there, and it is important just to, like I said, ask the tough questions, be a tough researcher in regards of quality wise, and do good stuff, man. So, don't change that mind frame whatsoever.
Oh, no. I plan to always keep an open mind.
Thank you for everyone who once again stopped by tonight for another episode of Midnight Lycanthropy here on StarFox Radio. If you did enjoy this, please like, comment, subscribe, share it, and feed the algorithm. Until next time, keep your head on a swivel, lock your doors, and stock up on silver bullets.